What is up, Generals? We are back with Ultimate General Civil War, and we're playing the Major General Confederate playthrough on our march towards the Battle of Fredericksburg. We're going to stop, however, which one's 7 December? We're going to stop at Corinth on the way over, however. Wait, 62. Yeah, so we're going to stop on Corinth on the way over. And it would appear as if we are, yes, we're going on the offensive in this battle, which means I'm going to be sending Robert Lee into the attack. And that's because Robert Lee is perked with the speed perk, the accuracy perk, and the experience perk. So let's take a look and make sure we have the appropriate. We're not going to be able to bring nearly all of these, but we've got a Blake unit I'm happy with, 20 Parrot. It's a James now. Several infantry units I'm quite happy with. A couple of dragoon units I'm probably not likely to use. Sharpshooters, Napoleons. Can we upgrade you to anything? Don't have enough Jameses. Don't have enough Parrots. Blakeleys. Don't have enough Blakeleys. Okay, sure. How are we doing on guns? Everyone's got pretty good stuff. The Grenadiers have muskets because they're Grenadiers. That makes a degree of sense. Okay, Dragoons, sure. Okay, so we don't get to bring a lot of units to Corinth. I guess we have to bring a couple. We get to bring most of our core. So let's jump in and see how we do. The Yankees have deployed their left flank at Memphis Road, leaving a significant gap in their center. Their headquarters are established in this farm. Attack swiftly and crush the rebel flank, or federal flank. Rebel flank. All right, let's think about what we want to bring instead of just the first XX units in the core. All right, so this map doesn't really expand a whole lot from this. If I remember correctly, they have a pretty decent position dug in here. And then this situation's always a good time too. So we're going to need a screening infantry unit. What's your perk? Great, perfect. We're going to want to bring, are these actually 10-pounders? These actually are 10-pounders. Where's the James unit? There's the James unit. I want to bring them for sure. First artillery. I want to see if I can't spread out some of the love experience-wise. So let's see what we bring from 1st Division. Let's see if we can't just bring the 1-star units in all of these divisions and see where that gets us. All right, for the time being, I'm going to want to block off the divisions together. And then I'll break them apart separately. Okay. Napoleons, I don't think we're going to get the chance to use Napoleons the right way in this battle. All right, so this is 2nd Division. This battle requires a degree of mobility. And we're what? Canister, accuracy, canister. Canister. We'll see. I might have a chance to use the Napoleons. We'll see. We're for sure going to want counter battery, so we're going to have that. We are probably going to want to use some sort of sniper unit. Okay. And then we go on to the light division, which tells me that we're probably going to end up bringing some of the 2-star units because I don't think I need a big brute squad of 4 cav for this battle. We do want the Blakeleys. That's going to be basically our artillery component. 2 light, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 infantry. We've got a bunch of slots left. Is this the kind of battlefield where cavalry is going to be able to do anything? I don't think so. This is too dense. We're going to be maybe able to swing something out this way, but I think at this point I suck it up. I bring all of the veteran brigades from these various divisions. Yep. And are you grenadiers? Musketry and speed. You are grenadier guards. Musketry accuracy. Are more artillery Napoleons? Or do I swap out one of these infantry units and bring in some cavalry? I just worry that this is not going to be the kind of battle where cavalry is going to have the opportunity to do anything. It's too dense. And we're attacking them. Parrots at extreme range. Yeah, let's bring the parrots as well. Sorry, Cav, not today. All right, so that's not really an organization for the purposes of 3rd Division, 3rd Division, 3rd Division, 3rd Division. So let's keep them. Okay, so how do I want this to go? What's the objective? Flag here. It has been ages since I fought this battle. If you guys can hear my laundry in the background, I'm sorry. 1st Division. Let's get you. Your objective is here. 2nd Division. Your objective is here. In the 3rd Division, you have the hardest job, which is why I have the Grenadier Guards and 9th Rifles as your block. All right, so there. Okay, so the concept of operations here is that yeah. 3rd Division will flank all the way around here and attempt to outmaneuver the Confederate or the Union force here. This is a problem. The remainder of 1st and 2nd Division, Grenadiers go in the 2nd rank. Blake's, James's. Yeah, we're going to keep a tight artillery park. Let me see. So their range is going to be at about here, which means if I have them here, they'll be able to shoot most of this. What about there? Does that cover? No. No. None of these farms constitute urban terrain, which is not a huge surprise. So yeah, we'll push our artillery up there. Okay. Lee gets to be nice and aggressive. All right, guys, so let's jump into this here. I'm going to go ahead and start the battle, issue my initial orders, and we can talk about kind of what I want to accomplish in the course of this battle. Parrots, you've got nice long range. Let's get you there. James's are a bit shorter, but that's fine. 20 parrots can come back a wee bit. Actually, do I want them? No. We'll just let them do their thing, and if I need to call an audible on their positioning, then so much the better, I suppose. Let's do this. Where's my sniper unit? They're going to go here, and we'll figure out what's going on from there. Smith, the general. Okay, so 1st Division is going to take this 2 brigades here, 1 brigade here, and then another brigade. Meow. The objective for IDIV is basically this position. Objective for 2nd Division is like I said, this position. Objective for 3rd is to come all the way around this way, which means they're going to be the hardest to get in position as far as the timing is concerned, but they should hopefully be unmolested in terms of their advance. So we'll do that. Well, no, I know we're going to have I know my advance is going to be contested. So let's go there and there. Let's baby step this and not be stupid about it. Okay. And okay, so we're going to jump in at kind of a post audio recording from here on out. And I think the rest of this battle goes generally pretty well. As a side note, when I was recording this episode and then also the next episode, I was actually streaming on the Discord. And I had, I had the usual suspects, so to speak, on the other channel. So I think in a future episode, I might actually try and record one of these live and just have the audio from the stream in there, because there's some commentary about what's going on in the battle. There's some commentary about the overall health of the campaign, and I think having kind of a chorus of voices is pretty helpful. Broadly speaking, however, the shtick for this battle is, and one that I forgot in setup, is that the Union gets a wave of reinforcements from the top right of the screen, and they take what could otherwise be a fairly straightforward fix your opponent, find his flank, and destroy the enemy battle, and make it a much more interesting kind of affair, because then I'm trying to figure out how I shuffle enough resources to the right of the map to deal with those enemy forces. So we have our initial contact here, and Fuller and Oglesby come rushing in, and I'm quite nervous about this, but I'm also pretty confident I can shove off 2 brigades, especially when I can get Oglesby and Fuller to both cancel their charge just by falling back. And we, thanks to the power of snipers they're just insane. They do so much good work. Really punching well above their weight class. They're able to sort of get Oglesby out of there. And then Fuller, he takes a minute and a half to get out of there. Like he gets hammered from a bunch of different sides, and he's like, yeah, man, we can take this pretty much all day. The trading of blows cost me a colonel. And that's not a fun time, but it is what it is. So IDIV, or 1st Division, over here on the left of the screen, Confederate right, is mostly able to kind of shove their way forward and continue pressing. 2nd Division ends up being kind of the fulcrum around which the entire operation rotates. And 3rd Division has to do a lot of walking, but I strongly feel like 3rd Division is instrumental to the success of this battle plan. I have a suspicion that in the future, a way that I might want to try and do this is, instead of this sort of envelopment strategy where I come at the Union position from both sides and push towards the middle, there might be some version of this that's useful where everything goes right, and everything goes where 3rd Division is going. And then we're doing okay knocking out their artillery right now, sure. So everything goes theoretically where 3rd Division's going, and I attack Crocker's brigade here by the recon eye point. And then we use that sort of rectangular position in the woods as the foundation for me to launch my attack from. And I just sweep the Union screen leftward in the process. And there's a thought to it. There's a school of thought that I think that wouldn't be terrible, to be honest, because it would allow me to keep my command. It would allow you, the player, or me in the future, the opportunity to keep my command all, coherent and tight together. And that's usually almost always a recipe for victory, is keeping your units, tightly packed, organized, so forth and so on. So while all of this is kind of moving into position, I wanted to go ahead and talk about, real life very briefly. I apologize for not posting an episode last week. I was out of town on vacation visiting the family for holidays. So I told myself I might record something while I was away. I brought all of the equipment that I would need to do some kind of recording, and I don't know. I see them, once or twice a year, and it just ended up being kind of more important to hang out with my dad or something than to do this. So you're going to get 2 episodes this week, 2 side missions. So this one, which I believe is Chantilly, does that sound right? It's whatever this one is. And then Prairie Grove as well. You're going to get both of those this week. And then I've already recorded Fredericksburg. The guys who were on the stream last night watched. They're saints for doing it, because that battle does not go quick. They watched that one. And Fredericksburg is an absolute massacre. So if you'll remember my previous attempt at a major general playthrough in the Rebalance mod, Fredericksburg is where I called it. Fredericksburg is where I said, hey, this is getting too easy. It's no longer fun. Every battle is a foregone conclusion that I'm going to walk out of it with, 4,000, 5,000 casualties or whatever. And that's, the worst I'll suffer. Unfortunately, that's more or less exactly what happened at Fredericksburg. So spoiler alert, we walk out of that battle relatively unscathed. I think we did better actually in the last attempt than we did here, but we can compare and contrast, I suppose. It still goes broadly very well. This actually also goes off really well, getting Crocker out of these trenches. So he takes a couple of shots from the flank, and he bails pretty quickly. I am possibly more passive on the Confederate left. Actually, Confederate right, screen left. I am potentially more passive up there than I should be. But neither here nor there, I suppose. Because I could be pushing up and getting infantry brigades to the left of the Union position, and that would kind of split their attention and take a lot of the focus that ends up being directed towards 3rd Division. It would take a lot of that focus off of them. So I could be advancing with 11th Mississippi, 14th Arizona, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is an unfortunate break, although when I'm watching this now in post, I'm like, oh, well, obviously they broke the way they broke because you had 5th Alabama Light Infantry there. So they broke away from 5 Light Infantry. They broke up and to the right. If I'd had the Light Infantry posted in a different position, they would have broken left back towards the remainder of their command, and I would have been able to maintain a more unified direction of effort. So around this time, Crocker gets some reinforcements. I'm able to kind of continue using my counter battery to shell down their cannons. And I actually had a great conversation with Boots and Cats, Warbob, all that group about kind of the relative merits or value of different kinds of artillery. And it's my perception, and it seemed like it was the perception of a good number of the players as well, that cannons that had used to be the linchpin of a strategy, so 24-pound howitzers, for example, are now perceived to be of significantly reduced utility because of the fact that the AI so aggressively hunts down your cannons. So in this battle, for example, I take 100% counter battery artillery, with the idea that if I don't get to have my cool howitzers, you don't get to have any guns, kind of being the thought process. And I think it worked, right? Like the counter battery stuff is definitely not geared towards counter infantry, but when you've got 4 or 5 batteries, it doesn't really matter. Like they've got reach for days. And the difference between a howitzer and a James, for example, is a howitzer is really only useful in the canister or shrapnel range band. You do not want a howitzer to be shooting at max range. By comparison, I'm perfectly content to let my 20-pound parrots shoot at max range. And that while each shot is maybe perhaps less effective than a canister from a 24-pound howitzer, surely. And this is when the guys remind me, like, hey, by the way, there's dudes coming from the top right. You might want to do something about that. So my sniper's kind of YOLO in there, trying to get at, I think they're just trying to get forward at a target that I told them to shoot that had since retreated. And it's on me for not noticing that they're moving away. 3rd Division is continuously attempting to develop its position as a counter anvil for which I can advance with 2nd and 1st Division. But I am now made nervous about the introduction of Sullivan and it looks like Sonberg, Sonburn, something kind of like that. Sonborn, and it's the two brigades of Union infantry approaching from the top right. I'm less concerned about the cavalry. I'm pretty much always not really all that concerned about cavalry, but I'm very concerned about the infantry, as I don't really have much in the way of resources there to counter said infantry. So we're advancing with 1st Division on the Union left. We've got 3rd Division in place on the Union right, and now the objective is to sort of fire obliquely at a number of these units to slowly but surely whittle them down and force them into the center. Whereupon 2nd Division can press south and kind of push them into the corner. So we're not, like, the broad strokes of that objective or plan work. But it takes more time than I would have initially liked to get them out of the woods in some places. And that is, I guess, just kind of, it is what it is. It's going to be whatever it's going to be, I guess. However, this is Lee's first time in the field. Now, when the game just gives you a 3-star general, they are handing you a whole lot of resources very quickly. In that Lee gives you just excellent 3-star generals are across the board incredibly useful resources, and Lee just falls in your lap as a 3-star general after the battle at Antietam. So you're going to go into Fredericksburg no matter what with, at this point, probably 2 3-star generals, because you're going to have your unit commander, and then you're going to have Lee. And if you've developed a third, hey, more power to you, I suppose. So I mentioned before that the development of Lee and a Fiasco is more or less the same, with the only major differentiator being the Tier 1 perk. For Lee, it's accurate. For Lee, it's mobility, and for Fiasco, it's the mobility perk. The Tier 2 and Tier 3 perks are the same for both, with both of them being the father figure for the experience and whatever the hell the one is that involves accuracy at the 2nd tier. That one, whatever that one is. So I watched Boots and Cats. He streamed a bit as well. I watched Boots and Cats. He decided to go for the cover perk at Tier 3. And the cover perk is very interesting in play. So I think the strategy, like the experience perk, is more useful on the camp screen and in the overall health of the campaign generally. But the cover perk is very interesting because it takes a lot of positions on the battlefield that would not usually be viable and makes them viable. So at Prairie Grove, for example, the fences on that battlefield for me give about 70% ish cover. For him, they were giving 100. That's gigantic. That is a huge differential in things that are useful and things that aren't. So it's more useful on the battle screen. I have a suspicion that the experience is more useful on the campaign screen, however, if you're taking fewer casualties, period, I wonder if over the health or length of a campaign, that cover perk won't have bigger returns over the life of a campaign versus the experience gain. My suspicion, anecdotally, and having watched Boots and Cats play and everything else, my suspicion is that the experience perk will be very useful for a general whose job it is to develop green units and turn them into veterans. However, once you've got a veteran core, it will be more useful, I think, to preserve that core with a general who's perked for cover. And so I'm especially interested in the Union campaign, where I could very easily see a Mark III or a 3-star general with the experience perk being useful for more rapidly developing Union units who are garbage, and then a second actual battle or combat core composed of it's a 3-star general with similar perks who have the cover perk. And the thought process therein is that units would only get transferred into what I'll call the covered core once they've spent a battle or 3 under the command of the plus 25% experience general. And that these two forces would work very well together, because you would then spend fewer and fewer resources on buying vets to refill these units and everything else. And you could put that money earmarked towards more guns, while your experienced general was being spent, or was expending his time training these units. So kind of you've got like kind of a McClellan and a Sherman from the or a Grant from the Union perspective. And I don't really know if there was an equivalent on the Confederate side. I had read something about Jackson being kind of a drill master extraordinaire, and that had played big dividends when Jackson was able to fight at Bull Run, and then the campaign in the Shenandoah, where his significantly outnumbered corps, and I feel like even then saying the word corps is a bit of a generous buildup of the actual unit size, was able to tie up a significant amount of Union troops who were otherwise intending to invade through that corridor from like Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, deeper into Confederate territory. Anyway, from a Union perspective, you kind of have the perspective of like, this is your McClellan who takes green units who otherwise suck, and turns them into, experienced 1-star units or 2-star units. And you've got your Grant or your Sherman who utilizes them with better cover and that kind of thing. I like, it's of minimal utility in my mind in a Confederate campaign, because the Confederate stats are already so good, and especially by the time you have a 3-star general, you already have kind of grown your army as big as it's going to get. Like I don't think my army is going to get a lot bigger. I build it up a little bit for I build up the middle corps a bit for Fredericksburg, but it doesn't really do a whole lot of fighting. The 2 wings have handled the lion's share of the battle, such that when I don't even know if 3 Corps fires a single shot in anger. Well, I Corps, my junk corps, fires 1 single shot in anger in the course of the whole battle. So I mean, that'll be an indication for you, I suppose. I don't know if the Confederates need a 3rd battle corps. I mean, probably yes. Especially I can imagine like Stones River, which is just such a large battlefield. Having a 3rd corps that is at least somewhat combat capable wouldn't be a bad idea. But I don't know. With the bug associated with the I Corps commander size being what it is, I also don't know how much value I place in trying to get I Corps on the field. So all of that is kind of a long-winded way of saying I spent a great deal of time arguing with myself back and forth about the value of plus cover versus plus experience. I never really put a great deal of value on the minus morale received perk, but having seen cover in action, I think cover is a really great perk. So anyway, keep that in mind when you're playing your game, especially if you're watching the series following along with me. You should probably have you should probably have your commander, your avatar commander, if you've left him in the command slot like I have, he should be at 3 stars by now. Or near enough to it, and you should probably be kind of asking yourself what you want to do. The point is that between experience and cover, I don't think you can pick wrong. And it will come down to your play style, I think. The cover is a lot more useful than I'd initially given it credit for. I'll put it that way. It empowers you to make some battlefield locational decisions that I have written off as being not optimal, and it makes them usable. So that's very cool. It's very useful. The broad strokes of this battle are not worth describing as far as making all of my commentary about them. We set out to box in the Union in the center and largely accomplished that goal. There is still some time left in the video, so it's not like it's over or anything. We set out to box them out from the sides, so that the only option they have is the center, where there's not nearly as much cover. Now, what I would have liked to have done is develop some sort of amount of forces in this copse of trees to the south of the Union position right now, because at the moment they have a very safe place to retreat to. It is what it is. I also very much appreciate 1st Sharpshooter, as that single small skirmisher unit is able to keep my back door protected. The fact that they have such long range, the fact that they punch so hard and are able to morale shock a lot of these units so that they don't want to push forward with an offensive. Those two factors make it so that I'm able to focus a lot of my combat power forward. And my artillery is able to reach now basically everywhere on the map that there are enemy units. So there's never going to be a point in time when the AI has a moment to breathe and they're not being shelled, which is a big deal. I know that people have repeatedly said, like, oh, snipers are too powerful, and I kind of agree. In the test client of Rebal Mod 1.25.3, the scoped Whitworth is being pared back in two ways that I think are both very reasonable changes. One, the reload rate of the gun itself is being lowered so that it takes longer per volley to fire off a second round, which is great because it's going to allow them to not. It's a needed balance change. As much as I love the Whitworth, I think it's appropriate that they're not they're just objectively too good, right? The other thing that's happening is that there's a significant reduction in the availability of that gun, which I think is also a completely appropriate balance change that doesn't punish the historical significance of the scoped Whitworth, because it was quite the revolutionary gun, and it was genuinely very accurate, and it was a great weapon, but not a whole shitload of them got made. So reducing the Confederate access to them is probably the appropriate way to handle that from a balance note. Game-wise, the sharpshooters are able to shut down any attempts to advance on my cannons, which is exactly why I have them where I have them. They're able to scare off this small cav unit, who ends up kind of deciding to go somewhere else, which is reasonable. And then Sanderson or Sondland, or this guy up north. I can't quite read it, but it's something kind of like that. And he's scared off as a result of all the sniper work. And we just work on slowly but surely pushing the Union into the corner. And if I get some captures here, great. But I don't really plan on it. My objective is, I am perfectly content to shoot them into the dirt. Totally fine with it. And that's kind of largely how that ends up going. I had thought about trying to box them into the woods here, but that seems like a fool's errand. So I'd come down with 27th Georgia and 11th Mississippi and close the back door, maybe also for 16th Texas, and kind of close the back door and lock them in place. But that seems like a bad idea, because if they're in this kind of cover, this is thick wood, double tree, nice cover. So it's great damage reduction as far as the AI is concerned. And that's just really not good for the purposes of trying to shoot them down, capture them, anything like that. So we just keep on working on advancing and shattering, advancing and shattering. And 18th Grenadier Guards and I want to say 9th Virginia Rifles. Yeah, that sounds right. The Grenadier Guards and the 9th Rifles advance and push. And I'm using these side battles with the explicit objective of trying to level up or increase the experience of my army. So in filling out the rosters for these battles, I brought as many 1-star units as I could. And then if I had slots left over, only at that point in time did 2-star units come to the battle. And essentially that's what we ended up doing. This is a bit touch and go here. Wilcox gets a good charge off on my light infantry, but I figure, we're light infantry. We're in the woods. That's actually pretty favorable for the infantry. So let's countercharge, and that actually works out pretty well for me because the fight goes pretty poorly for them fairly quickly. And as you can see, we're just kind of grinding down the Union. They're never really able to get a chance to kind of get moving. They are firing volleys. They are fighting. There's plenty of fight left in this army. But they're never going to be really in a position where they can effectively mount any kind of real offensive or real push out, because to do so they would need to cover across trees, and they're being shelled into oblivion by a pretty well developed Confederate artillery corps at this point. And so it's just a bad time for the Union. Their cav can't get rolling because to do so they would need to cross open terrain, and cav take a great deal of fire or damage from rifle fire. So I mean, yeah, that's pretty much all she wrote as far as the battle is concerned. For what it's worth, I had a wonderful Christmas. Family was wonderful. Kind of boringly, I got a vacuum. Like, just kind of one of those things. Like when you get older. But it is what it is. I had a great weekend. I saw family. I hope you guys had a great, Christmas, or if you have a good Hanukkah, or whatever's appropriate for you personally. I hope you had a great whatever that was, or just even if you don't, yeah, I hope you had a good kind of quiet couple of weeks, because most of American business kind of shuts down. Most Western businesses kind of draw down a lot of their effort, so to speak, in this time frame. At this point in time, the battle's kind of a foregone conclusion, and me, while playing, I pushed it into a fast forward and then even triple speed, and we just grind them down. I keep on eyeballing, like trying to get that supply wagon. It never works out. It is kind of just what it's going to be, I suppose. But that's pretty much it for this battle. We don't get a lot of captures, which is not surprising considering I killed everything. And then we do quite a bit better at Prairie Grove in terms of that. But, here we are moving up towards the end. The next episode should be out in the next day or two. That'll be Prairie Grove. Fredericksburg will probably have to wait until the weekend. We take a little over 3,100 in losses, but with 10 medicine, that's going to look more like 2,000 give or take. So, I mean, yeah, not bad, right? Good numbers in a lot of the units. The snipers are always broken as all hell. We mint ourselves a general, which is always a good time, but we lose a colonel in the process, which is not that big a deal. Make a couple of 61s, which is great. And then some Lorenges, which is a good time too, and some Cav guns, and just random bits and bobs just get picked up here and there. It's kind of just whatever it's going to be, I guess. Money, dudes, rep. I think I put the point here into econ. I kind of like the idea of more and more econ. And off we go, I suppose. So I'm going to cut it here in terms of the audio. There's a little bit of camp stuff, but for the most part, this is it. I will see you guys in the next one. This is Fiasco for now, signing out.